Small business war stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes. Hey, lovers of small businesses and good stories in general. Welcome to Small Business War Stories, episode 66. And today, I sat down with Dayle, Morningstar, and Brandon Laird of Colorado Highland Helicopters. Yes, I sat down with a helicopter company in Durango, Colorado, and not just any helicopter company. They do really cool stuff where they do training and missions up in the mountains, which is a special kind of helicopter flying because the air gets thin up there, and we talk about what that means. They have lots of really cool stories of what it means to start their operation and to have succeeded in getting a great social media following and a successful business in Durango, Colorado. This episode is a part of the Soul of America 2 tour, where I went with my dog, Marty Waggers, all the way from Austin up to Bozeman, Montana, stopping at different places along the Rockies. And as part of that tour, it's sponsored by FreshBooks. And FreshBooks is a piece of software that over 5 million small business owners use. So they use FreshBooks to do things like invoicing, online payments, taking deposits, and getting insights into their business, right? Because what happens is that you spend a lot of time running your business and doing all the things. I mean, they're selling the business and executing whatever service or product it is that you provide. But then you have to run the back end, all the gears, all the money. How do you know where everything's going? And FreshBooks does a great job at that, again, with the invoicing, the payments, the financial part of it. Go check them out for a 30-day free trial. Go to freshbooks.com/war stories and enter Small Business War Stories in the How Did You Hear About Us section. That helps them, helps you, and it helps us. It helps us produce a show here at Small Business War Stories. So we'd appreciate that. And also, it's as every episode of Small Business War Stories, this one is brought to you by Proven. Proven.com. That is the small business hub, the small business company. We have a hiring product that helps you distribute your job widely to all the best job boards and collect all the applications in one place. And we also have a great blog that helps you with different aspects of running your small business. You can check that out at blog.proven.com. And if you have any ideas about things we could cover on this show, on the blog, please do email us, podcast@proven.com. I would love to hear from you. I will personally read and reply to all the emails that come in. Without further ado, let's get into today's episode with Dayle Morningstar and Brandon Laird of Colorado Highland Helicopters in Durango, Colorado. And we are live here this morning in beautiful Durango, Colorado. And this morning, I have the pleasure of sitting here with Brandon Laird and Dayle Morningstar Laird, and they are partners here at Colorado Highland Helicopters. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Durango.
It's exciting to be here. I've been wanting to come here for a long time. I've heard a lot of good things about the beautiful mountains you have here and the good vibes. So it's we've never had a aviation or helicopter business on the show, so I'm really excited to learn about you guys and what you guys do and how this all came about.
Great. Thank you for having us.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's great. So how did you, so are you the main pilot? Do you fly as well or not? Dayle?
No, I'm a student.
You're a
right
student.
now.
Okay. And you, how long have you been flying, Brandon?
I've been flying helicopters since 2006.
Okay.
And
So 11 years.
yeah, I guess that sounds right.
How did you learn how to fly, and how did you know that there was a need for a Colorado helicopter service? Maybe walk me through from getting your pilot's license to today.
Okay. Well, it was sort of unexpected to end up here in Durango, but I learned to fly out in California, Carlsbad, California, at Civic Helicopters, which is a civilian flight school. I wasn't in the military. I taught a lot of military guys to fly eventually, but I wanted to fly helicopters. I went to school to be an engineer, and I was building houses and things like that, and I just kind of didn't want to get stuck doing that. I felt like this was something I wanted to pursue and check out. So I went to flight school, and I went through the process that we'll probably talk more about, how that goes and how you develop time and the process of different jobs that you can get. But I knew I wanted to fly in the mountains. They're beautiful, and it's challenging flying, and it's sort of interesting work that you can do with helicopters in the mountains. So I wanted to work this direction, and I started working eventually for a company called Tri-State Care Flight. And they were based out of Bullhead City, and they had a couple bases up here in Colorado, and I started out and moved up to Montrose.
Where is Bullhead? Is that Arizona?
Yeah, Bullhead City, Arizona, which is kind of the desert, the tri-state area, California, Nevada, Arizona area.
Okay.
And but I wanted their mountain bases, so I got moved up to Montrose, and I was there for a while, and then ultimately I wanted to be in Durango. I'd heard good things about Durango, and
You too.
passed through, checked it out, really enjoyed it, and ended up getting an opening here in Durango, and got the spot and started flying for Care Flight here in town, and that's where I met Dayle. She's a flight paramedic for that company. We met here at the Durango base, and that's where we started seeing a need for this type of both instruction and this type of service as far as from the rescue side. So that's where we got interested in this, and later decided to go ahead and do it when Care Flight pulled out of the area.
Okay.
So we wanted to stay, and we decided to pull the trigger.
Very cool. How long ago was that?
Almost.
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's been a year and a half since you guys have been in business.
Yes.
Yep. We started May 2016.
Okay. Awesome. So there's so many questions I have. I mean, let's start a little bit more about what it means to fly in the mountains. So you talked about, I mean, it's not the same as flying, in the open plane, right?
It's not in a lot of ways. Obviously, the terrain is, creates some challenges with rising terrain and uneven ground and things like that. But also the altitude itself, being up higher, presents some changes in performance with the helicopter, both the amount of power that the aircraft can produce and the amount of lift that the blades can produce. So understanding the machine and understanding the effects of the terrain and the weather and the wind that are developed in the mountains, and working to make those things, work out for you. If you don't sort of have a plan for that, it can present some problems, some dangers. And it's something that isn't well trained, especially in practice. You get some theory with your training, but it's very difficult to actually train to do and have somebody experience. So that's one of the reasons we wanted to offer that, and be sure that the pilots that are coming into the industry, especially that want to do these type of jobs, search and rescue or emergency medicine in the mountains, have the experience and the training to do that safely and confidently.
Cool. Now, and you have a background as a paramedic, right?
Yes.
So one of the things that is different about a helicopter in the mountains is you can get to places where you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to in, say, a plane, right?
Absolutely. Or even in a vehicle.
Yeah. So tell me more about that. What are some of the scenarios and things where that happens?
Well, one of the big things here are lost hikers, hunters, hunting accidents. These guys will really pack in and plan to stay for a couple weeks at a time doing a hunt, have a heart attack or something up there, and it's pretty, remote, and there's no roads, so the helicopter is the perfect vehicle to rendezvous with these people.
Is that a common scenario, something that happens a lot when people go out on expeditions, accidents and things like that? Is that the most common thing?
That is a pretty common thing around here, especially in the fall. Hunting accidents, I would say we ran the majority of our calls were hunting accidents at that time.
So what happens? What is the process? Somebody calls. Do these people usually carry radios with them, and then they call out for help? And they call 911, and 911 calls you?
Yes.
Or what is that? Okay.
Yeah, they call 911 usually from their cell phone, and a lot of times it's we have to kind of go and find them, because they'll have one person from their party have to ride a horse down and actually get service, and so they don't even know exactly where they were when the accident happened.
So that's gotta be challenging.
It can be, but another thing is that we're often not the direct call. So if they call 911 or whomever and get some emergency help, it's usually dispatched, the normal way through the sheriff's department, and the local search and rescue agency will respond in whatever way they think is necessary, and hopefully they involve us as an asset or an additional resource to help with that search, and we're able to cover that ground and get into the next valley. For instance, if they're a little confused as to where they were, they might report that they're in such and such valley or near such and such lake, but they've moved to the next ravine in order to get out or to get access to cell coverage. And with a responding agency on foot or on vehicles or horseback even, it can be quite a challenge for them to get over that next ridge or whatever that obstacle is, whereas the helicopter can pass through and find, hey, they're just a mile over this way, but totally inaccessible from where that ground group is.
Yeah, and it's pretty, I mean, it can make a huge difference, like one valley from the next, right?
Sure. Yeah, no communications between the two areas, no line of sight, no hearing, anything like that. So they might spend hours in one ravine or whatever. The helicopter comes in and says, hey, they're right over here.
Even if it's a half mile as a crow flies, it could,
Yes.
A world away.
Yeah. Wow.
So far, all the rescues we've done, we've been able to locate the people within an hour.
Okay.
So
That's pretty good.
we think so.
Is that the bulk of your business is rescues?
No. The bulk of our businesses are education.
Okay.
Training students how to fly.
Interesting. And how do people find you for that? Who are they? Do most people that come and take lessons, are they looking to become commercial pilots, or people who just want to enjoy the flying helicopter?
Well, we have a pretty big mixture. So we have some start to finish pilots right now. They came with no experience and they want to have their commercial certificate by the time they're done so they can go out and work. And because of the terrain that we do fly in and the type of aircraft, we also do turbine transitions.
What does that mean?
Typical flight schools start out with piston-driven engines, aircraft that they fly. So this aircraft is a jet turbine-powered engine. The typical trainer aircrafts don't have enough performance to work safely up at these altitudes, so that's why we use that. However, many students, when they get out of flight school and they've got their commercial certificate, they will end up working in an aircraft like this, but they don't have any time in it. So we will do 10 or 20-hour blocks of just that transition so that they're able to be a little bit more marketable. We also do mountain courses. Again, most flight schools in America are on the coast.
Yep.
You know, it's where the population is. And many people have maybe thousands of hours flying, but have never flown at high altitudes.
Which is a completely different game from what you were saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It changes things quite a lot, and it's unfortunately it's something that you could probably pull off, and there's no additional requirements to be able to fly up here, and rarely do you have a standard for training to fly up at these altitudes, but it is certainly more challenging and can be much more dangerous, especially if you're not well equipped.
What are we at here? 5,000 or so?
Oh, this airport's 6,680.
Oh, that's quite a bit higher.
And then we've got within 20 miles to the north, 14,000 feet.
Right.
So,
what's the highest rescue you guys have ever done?
I've done rescues above 12,000 feet, landings above 12,000 feet.
Oof.
So it can be very challenging to fly any helicopter at those altitudes.
I was going to ask you, at what point does a helicopter become non-viable?
That's a good question, and there's a ton of variables that go into that. And that's actually kind of part of what we train is how can you determine that? How do you ascertain what your performance is in a given aircraft in a given set of conditions and for a given mission? Flying the helicopter over a certain terrain is usually doable in almost any aircraft, but being able to land that aircraft or extract somebody or position the aircraft in a hover over that area to be able to do whatever that mission might require has a huge set of variables.
So you can fly at 20,000 feet?
There's some regulatory issues above 18,000 feet. The helicopter can't enter. That's instrument airspace where it has a different set of rules. Over 12,000 feet, there's oxygen requirements. So there's different regulatory limitations. But for instance, this helicopter's service ceiling is 20,000 feet.
Okay.
It's
just the maneuverability of it.
Yeah, in order to land this helicopter, you're going to be limited on a day like today to maybe 13,000 feet. On a warmer day, maybe less than that, depending on your weights and like I said, a huge.
And that's
set of
because
variables.
the air is denser when it's colder.
You get less dense air with an increase in temperature. So a change in temperature changes things, and obviously it's ultimately how much weight can the aircraft pick up, and including itself and the pilot and the fuel and anything else that you're trying to add to it in order to complete the mission.
Cool. So what percentage of your business is lessons?
I would say about 80%.
80%.
Yes.
And then the other 20% is rescues.
Just kind of anything and everything.
Okay. What? So let's talk through some examples. So what are some of the things you guys do?
We'll do tours if people call. We don't really advertise that, but we will do that.
We do photography work, so people trying to get access to aerial views of the Glacier Club, for instance, we did. We do air tactical training for firearms, both for shooters and for pilots. Obviously, that's an increased level of distraction and issues of safety with incorporating, bringing a firearm and shooting from the aircraft.
Yeah.
So we train that, and we also offer that as a essentially recreational training. Then we also do that for law enforcement, paramilitary types. So we do some of that. We surveys. We do basically anything that somebody might be able to use a helicopter for.
Cool.
But our primary is the training.
It's interesting. It would seem to me like tours would be a bigger part. Is there a reason you guys don't advertise that? Is that something that people would want to? I mean, the beautiful terrain here and everything.
Well, when we started this business, we really did decide to focus on the flight school model for the reasons that we talked about already. And mostly because it's just what he loves to do. He loves to teach other people how to fly. So
I really enjoy the teaching. I think there's a huge need for it. I think it's going to benefit our industry to offer pilots that have specific mountain training at high altitude. And because we needed an aircraft that can do that sort of work, we chose an aircraft that's more expensive to operate, but it has better performance capabilities in order to do those jobs and to train people at those altitudes. And that sort of removes it from the tour market to a certain extent. It's less accessible to the public to come just get a ride in a helicopter. So
because of the operational cost.
Because of the cost of the aircraft. Yep.
Yeah. How much is an hour of flight time on this?
Our cost per hour is $7.50 an hour, which is actually awesome. I think we're the least expensive turbine in the country.
Okay.
But it's still a little bit tough for the public to access that at $250 a seat to go for a ride.
So most people who do tours do it on a piston aircraft.
Exactly.
Yes.
Got it. Okay.
And while we may want to expand that direction, what we've chosen to be able to offer sort of requires a little bit more aircraft, and with that comes a higher cost.
Makes sense. So this beautiful helicopter we're sitting next to right here is about $500,000.
Yeah, helicopters in general don't get much less than about $500,000.
Yeah.
But
So how do you, when you're first starting out, how do you finance a helicopter, and then how do you, from the small business perspective, how do you make that decision, and then how do you go from there?
Well, we don't want to give away all our secrets. We saved. We ended up taking the equity out of our house essentially to purchase the helicopter, and that thankfully put us in a position where we don't have a huge payment every month.
Okay.
And that gives us some flexibility with how often we have to fly the helicopter in order to not go broke each month. And we just feel like this is a service that is needed. It's a niche in the market that's not well filled. People have chosen to go other directions. Typically, somebody will buy a helicopter and go get contracts, go do fire contracts, go do construction, power line. It takes them away from their region. The helicopter's always traveling. And with what we're trying to do here with being available for search and rescue, things like that, if we were to take those contracts, it sort of negates that capability. So it's not maybe the fastest, most efficient way to start a business and make money, but we feel like in the long run, this is going to develop into something that will be profitable for us and allow us to offer the services that we feel are important here from our home base without having to resort to chasing contracts like that.
Cool. So what's your vision? Where do you guys want to take this? I've heard a couple times you guys talk about, before we started the show, you spoke about the student who was just here, potentially also coming on board. What do you guys want to do?
Well, thanks for bringing that up. Everybody that comes and wants to have a pilot certificate is going to want a job later, and one of the main things that people do right when they get out is train other students, which seems counterintuitive if you're only a 150-hour pilot and you're going to turn around and teach. That's something that is interesting about our school, by the way, that Brandon has so many years of flying and he still loves to teach. But so we may get some trainer aircraft that could be just utilized here at the airport. They won't be up high in the mountains flying, but and then those will be accessible to aerial photography, tours, things that are a little bit more affordable for people.
So on a piston aircraft, how much is an hour of flying?
They can be as low as about 300 an hour. The aircraft that we would probably use up here is a little bit more expensive. It's kind of bridging the gap there, so they're closer to maybe 400 to 500 an hour. A little bit more accessible. Still has some capability here in the mountains, and 4 seats as opposed to 2, like most of your least expensive trainers.
Got it. And so for you guys' vision, the next step is kind of acquire more aircraft and then expanding your
I see us going kind of 2 directions. So we chose this aircraft because it best fills the gap as a single aircraft. But as we can sort of increase our quiver, we'd go 2 directions. The less expensive turbine aircraft that would offer accessibility to the public for tours, photos, things like that, and a pilot spot for some of our newer pilots that have come through our program. And then on the other side, a higher performance aircraft that could do some of the more intensive higher altitude rescue work or heavier load work, to go both directions. So, and we'd like to expand both ways and offer more advanced training and increase our capability for the air tactical training with higher performance aircraft, and then have job placement with less expensive aircraft that are more accessible to the public.
Okay.
I definitely think it'll be something that's slow. We spent maybe 6 months deciding which aircraft to buy when we knew that we were only going to buy 1 aircraft, doing a lot of research with capabilities and costs.
Okay.
So we do the same thing, really take our time and decide exactly what it is that we need.
Very cool. And is there enough demand for you guys to do that here? I mean, how many providers like you are there in Durango?
None like us. Actually, there's maybe 4 or 5 other companies in the country that do true mountain training, and the same number that do air tactical training.
Okay. So it's a pretty unique business.
It's
But what's the
business.
second call? If you guys are out teaching and somebody gets lost and 911 gets a call, what's the second call? Does that go to a provider somewhere else? And
At the moment, usually yes, it goes to one of the emergency medical providers nearby, and they will offer some limited search help and even some rescue capability per se if they can. But ultimately, they're trying to take a critical care patient to the hospital. That's the business model. That's what they do. And lots of times, people don't need that. They just need to get off the mountain and get back to safety, but they're not necessarily in a critical care medical situation. And we can help to remove them from the mountain and get them just onto a basic ambulance if needed, or just to some first aid and to a ride home.
okay. So it's like the difference between a sprained ankle and like a broken femur.
Exactly, or just being lost in the woods and waiting on a cold, freezing night to come up. If we can get them out of the woods before that, and we can offer additional rescue services that those guys can't offer. So we can get the rescuers in and out, get their equipment in and out a little bit more effectively, and rescue folks. So it's a little bit more on the search and rescue as opposed to a medical response, and we're hoping to make that a more prevalent response where people call us to help with a rescue as opposed to sending a patient.
Now, let's say you have a hunting party that's in the mountains. They run out of food. There's a cold front coming. You rescue them. Who pays for that?
It depends
good question.
how the call came in.
Okay.
So the state of Colorado wants all search and rescues done by search and rescue teams to be not-for-profit. They don't want tourism to be impacted anyway with that. However, people are free to call us on their own also, and we have had that where they've called our phone number instead of calling 911 and asked for help. In that case, we will bill them.
Okay.
So it can kind of go both ways, I think, is what she's saying, that if a search and rescue agency wants to use us, then they don't bill that, I guess, rescuee. They would incur that cost and cover the cost to use the aircraft through their own means, through their income grants or what have you, however the search and rescue agencies function.
Okay.
But we are also available as essentially a charter company, and if you happen to need that charter to rescue you, that's available as well.
But you get paid the same amount.
We do. Yeah.
Okay. So it would be wise advice for people to call 911.
Always call 911. I mean, we're never going to advise don't call 911
sure.
if you have a problem, but certainly, you can coordinate with the search and rescue agency, and perhaps search and rescue decides on their own that they need that resource of the helicopter. But even if the rescuee said, hey, isn't there a better way? Is there a helicopter available? The search and rescue could say, well, we haven't chosen to use that helicopter yet, but certainly, yes, that helicopter is available, but you will incur the cost.
Got it. So it's like a premium rescue.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
But not too premium. So
Yeah, it's still very inexpensive.
It absolutely is. If you wind up on one of the HEMS helicopters around here, the air medical ambulance helicopters, you may get transported to the hospital for something simple like being hungry, cold, and a sprained wrist, and it's going to cost about $20,000.
$20,000
At least.
How is that?
At least. That's the cost. That's sort of the going rate for an air medical helicopter to cover the medical response, the medical insurance, the capability that aircraft has to provide critical care transport has a cost that sort of makes the cost of the helicopter pale in comparison. So just the helicopters, it's not cheap, $750 an hour, but it's nothing compared to medical expenses.
Got it. Okay, so it might be so it's premium but not overpriced.
Yeah.
Love it. What are some of the wacky things you've seen out there? I mean, I'm sure you've seen some interesting stuff in your time flying, maybe here or elsewhere.
Well, I think that's something that we've dealt with our business here just this summer has been pretty wacky. Conspiracy theory type people that think we're trying to spy on them or look in their home, follow them down the road, things like that, and call local law enforcement and the FAA. And
wow,
obviously
so you've had
we're not
people
doing
show up
that
here
kind of
and
thing.
say,
We've had some pretty interesting phone calls. I'd say by and large the response to the helicopter being here in general is great. People are really excited about it, interested in the helicopter. They just like it. But you get a few, of course, that don't. And some of the what you hear, what gets to us actually, the phone calls we've gotten are they're
what's the best
pretty
one?
funny. Well, we had a guy that was ready to shoot at us because he thought I was chasing his animals. And the funny thing to me is I have no idea he's even there until I get home and hear from my wife that he's, called. But
wow.
So we get some of that stuff. But like I said, by and large,
But you didn't get shot at?
No, not that I'm aware of.
That's nice.
There's no holes in the helicopter anyway.
There you go. Maybe it's a bad shot.
That could be. We appreciate bad shots. Yeah.
Gotcha. Have you had challenges? I mean, I'm sure every small business has challenges, but can you think of a time when things went wrong, and how did you solve that?
You want me to take that?
Sure. Talk about the most recent thing that you had happen flying.
Well, as far as from a business aspect, I touched on there are quicker ways to make money with the helicopter that we've chosen not to take. So that is a challenge because the cost of the aircraft and just doing business in general is high already, and then you add an asset, a $500,000 asset to a brand new business, and of course things get tight. But we've chosen to sort of stick this out, and we hope that this blooms into something bigger and better than chasing those contracts, both in terms of what we offer and what we want to be doing, but also in terms of income and sustainability. So that's sort of a big challenge that we could have gone elsewhere and made more
And what are
money,
some of the
but
things,
we've
again,
chosen
you
not
could have
to.
been doing that you're not
Oh,
pursuing?
most people choose, to chase government contracts, Forest Service contracts, agricultural contracts.
For like fire and things like that?
Fire, they do, that's a big one, fire or other forestry services, whatever those guys might need moving their personnel or their equipment. Long line, which is a service that we offer where you use loads underneath the helicopter to move equipment and place equipment into difficult areas, and most people have to travel to do that, which we don't want to. We want to be able to be here to offer our capabilities locally and create a local presence. So that's been a challenge, but we feel like we're going to surpass that issue and create something bigger and better.
Cool.
I think the big thing for me is the paperwork and getting the certificates to allow us to do these things. So we started working with the FAA as soon as we bought the aircraft, and we're still in process a year and a half later to get, it's called a Part 135 and 133 and then a couple of other things. These certificates sometimes can take 7 years to get, and it's a lot of paperwork, a lot of time spent, and a lot of relationship building. You know, I think that's something that I've definitely learned. You want these guys on your side.
Yeah.
You don't want them angry with you, or they'll never get done. So.
And the regulation in general, I mean, any business encounters lots of regulations these days, but, you know, aviation especially. And you've got the FAA with oversight, you've got, you know, tax oversight, and then you've got local restrictions with fire codes. And it seems like every agency you can think of feels like they should have some oversight over a helicopter business. So you end up kind of going out and asking everybody, like, is there anything I need to do to keep you happy? Yeah.
Yeah.
We deal with the Forest Service, we deal with BLM, we deal with, you know, like I said, the FAA. Just the list goes on, and every new operation you want to do,
And
you have
local
to.
law enforcement, like you were
Oh
saying.
yeah, they're
medical.
great, but of course, yeah, there's aspects of every agency that, you know, feel like they have, you know, regulatory oversight over what we do. So you end up brainstorming like, what agency might feel like, you know, and you have to call and go, what do I have to do to stay in compliance with you? It's just, it seems never ending with the regulation.
Gotcha. And you were about to say, is there a time that you were flying something that something went wrong?
Oh, just, yeah, interesting things. She mentioned we had a blower belt, which turned out to be very, you know, insignificant. The aircraft was safe to fly, and we were able to get back on the ground, no problem. The consequence of that, if we continue to fly, it's a belt that drives a blower that puts cool air over the oil cooler. So eventually the temperatures would have come up and, you know, created an unsafe condition for the engine, but well past the time it would have taken us to get on the ground. But of course, when that breaks and you get this noise and vibration and it's unexpected, and I don't know what that is until I can get it on the ground and check it out. So things like that happen in the air obviously could be, you know, catastrophic, or they could be insignificant, and you sort of have to work with what you have and come up with a plan to get the aircraft back on the ground as safely as possible. And I had a student with me, and I think that, you know, being a more experienced pilot, not one of these 150, 200-hour instructors, gives me a little bit more confidence or a calmer approach to these things. And so you set the aircraft up to get back on the ground in the safest manner possible, in case it is a very
Bad thing.
yeah, if it's going to be a real problem for the aircraft, you set it up to where you don't put it in a position in case something is bad that it's not going to be able to perform for you. And we got it on the ground, and like I said, we found out it was insignificant, but you know, you do that calmly and efficiently and get the aircraft back home and figure out what's going on.
And helicopters are a different game than planes, right? I don't know, because a plane will still fly without an engine, sort of.
The helicopter will also, just not for as far. So we still have a glide in a sense. It's called an auto rotation, and it's you know, the blades will carry us back to the ground. They spin due to the airflow instead of with the engine, but it allows the helicopter to glide
but
without an engine.
It's a little faster descent that you want.
It comes down quite a lot faster than an airplane. The upside is you have very little or no speed if it's done well when you get to the bottom. So you need a very small space to put the aircraft in. You know, a football field or even a backyard is enough.
So it's an urban myth that the helicopter drops like a rock.
Oh, they come down pretty fast, but they're certainly salvageable, and it allows you to. You don't need a whole lot of space. If an airplane quits and you can't get it back to an airport or maybe a highway or at least a big field, it's just going to be a glide all the way to the crash. Whereas the helicopter, if it's done well, and it has to happen quickly, but you can put it in a very small space and get back on the ground safely. So it does happen quick, but it is still safe.
Cool. Thinking about people who are interested in starting small businesses, who are maybe in the throes of having a small business themselves, What is the number one lesson that you've all learned by doing Highland helicopters?
Well, I think there's two lessons for me. The first one, building relationships with people has been paramount. You know, having a good relationship with the local agencies around here, the community as a whole, not just this community, but the helicopter community also. One of the things that I think I failed on a little bit in the beginning was our marketing. Neither one of us have any training in marketing, so we were a little slow on the uptake of that. It took us a couple months to think, well, what should we really be doing? So I think maybe the first 6 months of our business, really nobody knew about us because we weren't really focusing on that.
How did you solve that?
Trial and error.
Yeah, trial and error, and we're
what
still in the
worked for you?
process.
What's your best channel right now?
So, because
Social
of the
media.
type of flight school we do have an international audience. So we advertise in internationally seen magazines like Vertical and Rotorcraft Pro, and these go, New Zealand, the Alps, South America. We do have people come here from other countries specifically to get the mountain training. So that's one side of it. We've advertised locally here in town on the radio, which has actually been very successful
For the local market.
for the local market.
For people, just recreational pilots who
Well, those are people actually that are start to finish, but it happens to be more accessible for them because they're here, and
Right.
going to another school that might be less expensive because of the aircraft they're operating, has its own challenges with getting there and being available to go to that school often enough. So we've gotten some start to finish people
Cool.
here with local advertising, but that international or wider market's been tough for us to access with a budget. And the social media and the other magazines have worked out great. And social media is awesome because it's inexpensive and it reaches an audience that's interested in us.
right.
Wide,
you guys do
wide
Instagram,
ranging.
right?
I do Instagram. I started it when we started the business. I didn't really know how to do it very well. And then we had a college age student come here and intern with us this summer from ASU, and his whole deal is marketing. So he gave me a lot of tips that's been very helpful, and that again has
Please do share. What are the tips? What did you learn?
I learned how to go to people that follow me, like say Vertical magazine, and go to their followers, click on a couple hundred, and then put a post up, and then about half of them will follow me back. So
you
it's
click on a couple of
free
hundred
advertising.
on you, and you post to their account?
Nope, just to mine.
To yours.
But then because I just started following them, they will likely follow me back, and then they'll see the post I put up that day. So I can do that
and
every
that
day.
post relates to that person you put up, or is not? It's just any post.
No,
you
I'm
put
hoping
up?
that it does. If you say follow Vertical Magazine's Instagram, you like helicopters. So then if I show you my helicopter, likely you'll follow it.
Okay.
So
And we're reaching a market that at least potentially has interest in us instead of just a randomized market of who might be listening to the radio at that time.
But that's a great tactic.
Absolutely.
So you follow a couple hundred people and then post immediately after that.
yes,
Okay. And that's worked well for you.
very well.
Yeah.
And,
How many followers you guys have on Instagram? It's quite a
maybe
few.
3,500 or so
That's
now,
great.
and that's just been. I mean, at the end of the summer, I had 200. I think.
Yeah.
So
And so that's like 5 months ago.
Oh, if that.
No, if
Yeah.
that, 3 months ago.
yeah.
That's really fast.
So,
Wow.
we're approaching our 40s, and social media, I am. Social media isn't something that we're experts with. I didn't grow up with the internet. So,
We
gleaning
even-
some of these little tools from the younger guys is
We
a good
even
idea.
dismissed it a little bit. I mean, it's not like it's this, cutting edge coffee shop business or something. It's, it's helicopters kind of an
Well,
old school
I mean,
business.
helicopters are cool.
They're cool, but it's not, paralleling technology. And so I kind of dismissed social media and that was a mistake. We definitely want to be involved with that.
And
Cool.
you have to do it every day and pay attention to your followers because they're having a conversation with you. And if I get a question asked of me, I really feel like it's my obligation to answer it in a timely fashion
Yeah.
and be nice
If
about
you let
it.
2 weeks go by, you maybe lose that person's attention.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
2 days.
exactly.
I would also say the biggest lesson or biggest thing that we brought to the business is not to be overextended. We chose an aircraft that we can afford, and we can pay for that aircraft, and it can sit idle if it has to. I mean, ideally not, and not for very long. But that's allowed us to build the business in the direction that we choose, as opposed to chasing whatever is going to pay the bills that month.
Being forced to do that.
And if we get a lean month or something, we're okay. And I think over time that's going to go away. But we also then start to get in the black real early.
Yeah.
So we're not we didn't go take a huge loan and get the the most powerful, biggest, most expensive helicopter out there. We chose something that fits what we're trying to do, but also fits in a budget that's reasonable for us, and that goes with the advertising as well. We chose social media instead of laying out a huge sum to access television markets or something like that.
And I think you have to be able to reevaluate. We're kind of in that process right now. We've been advertising with a lot of different venues for a year, so now we're starting to ask ourselves what's working and what's not. We really have to, I think, remove some of that for next year. Cut that budget down a little bit.
So you guys, every start to finish student you acquire is quite. I mean, how much does it cost to get how many hours do you have to fly?
The requirement for a commercial certificate's 150 hours. So they fly with us for
that's a lot of
time.
Money to spend.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
we
so
offer a block rate for those guys.
100 and what is it?
Well, we offer a block rate for those guys because they are going to fly with us and help us, pay our bills month to month, and we can count on that.
Yeah.
So it ends up being for our school $90,000, which is a little bit more than some of those piston schools, but very reasonable for a turbine school that offers this level of training in the mountains.
However, if you go to college, four-year degree, you're not necessarily guaranteed to get a job when you're done.
Or any skills in my case.
Yeah. Well, mine too. I have a master's and I do, really nothing with my college education. So, there's a huge pilot shortage in the world right now that's only going to get worse in the next decade when all the Vietnam era guys completely retire.
Interesting.
So
because helicopters used to be a lot more prevalent in the armed forces with the Hueys and all that than they are today.
It's fairly new to the civilian market, in terms of generational or guys that are filling those jobs. So.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I hadn't thought of that.
So it's $90,000, but you're gonna always work.
And if you come get it here, you'll learn how to fly in the mountains.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Then you have a skill set that's not always accessible to an early level pilot.
And that'll make you a pilot that allows you to carry that wallet that Samuel L. Jackson has in Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, that's right.
We won't say it here on the show. Awesome. Is there anything else that you want people to know about your business, about what you do here, and where can people find you? What are your social media websites and such?
Well, we're on ColoradoHighlandHelicopters.com. And then, of course, Facebook and Instagram at Colorado Highland Helicopters.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And if people want to get a pilot's license, they can reach out to you directly. And
Absolutely.
Hopefully you'll start doing more things with the tours as well.
That's something that another reason I wanted to start this business is when I decided I wanted to become a helicopter pilot. The process is fairly complex, but it's not hugely difficult to understand, but the information out there is contradictory or hard to find, and you call a school and you might get somebody that a receptionist that just doesn't know the process that well, or you might get, worse yet, a school that doesn't want to share the information as transparently as I think they should. And so I want to help people get into this industry and make the industry more accessible and better for everybody. So if we can just help you through the process of understanding how it works, whether you fly with me or not, when you call our business or email us, you're going to get one of us, and
Awesome.
We'll make sure we get those questions answered for you and you understand the process and what the best choices for you are going to be, whether that includes our school or not.
Absolutely. And we've tried to make our website very transparent. A lot of these other flight schools, they don't tell you how many hours you need. They don't tell you the cost, what they even fly maybe. They have pictures of, a Huey on the front of their flight school, and I know they're not training in that. So, all the pictures that are on ours are this aircraft and what we do here. There's a resources page that really breaks down the costs and what you need. And the medical, we get a lot of questions about that. Do I have to have perfect vision? Well, all that stuff's on there. And so.
Cool. Before we sign off, what's your, you talked about the desire to move here to Durango. What's been your involvement with the community? Why moved here to Durango? Like you mentioned the mountains, but I want to hear from you. Like how do you feel connected to this place and to this community?
Oh, well, yeah, originally I was drawn here because of the environment and the mountainous terrain and the type of work that I feel like is done or maybe can and should be done in this area with helicopters. The Rocky Mountains are some of the most austere environments in the United States or North America even. And the accessibility that you get from a helicopter and the type of work that helicopters can do in this area is really cool. So that's what drew me here. But since then, meeting Dayle here, having our son here, he's now 3. He was born while we were at Care Flight, and when the doors closed, he wasn't hardly about a year old, and we didn't want to take him out of here. It's such a beautiful place. We've had overwhelming, great response about having the helicopter here, and the type of thing that we're trying to do, filling this niche in an unusual way, has been very well received by the people we're trying to help. Those search and rescue agencies, fire, law enforcement, and the kind of things that we're trying to do in this environment really fits Durango and the type of environment and the community that's here. So we didn't want to leave that. We think it's the perfect spot for what we're doing. It's the perfect spot to raise our kid. So we didn't want to go anywhere else.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations, Brandon. Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you for being here.
Dayle, thank you so much for
Thank
taking
you.
the time and for sharing your story here in Small Business War Stories. And maybe I'll be back at some point and learn how to fly this.
Come see us.
Thank you so much. Thank you for listening to Small Business War Stories. If you enjoy the show, share it with a friend, or you can subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or on our blog at blog.proven.com. If you have an idea for us, we'd love to hear it. Please email us at podcast@proven.com. See you next time. Small Business War Stories. Small businesses are the soul of America. And this is where they tell their stories. I am your host, Pablo Fuentes.